It was a cold morning when Sarah stepped out of her small apartment. She held a white cane in one hand and a leash in the other. Her guide dog, Max, walked beside her. The wind was chilly, and the streets were busy with people rushing to work. Cars honked, and footsteps hurried past her, but Sarah walked calmly. She looked like any other blind woman, just trying to get through the day. People around her didn't pay much attention. They saw a quiet woman with dark sunglasses and a big dog. Some felt sorry for her, thinking she must have a hard life. Others ignored her, too busy with their own problems. They didn't know the truth. Sarah was not like other blind women, and Max was not like other dogs. Max walked beside her, his eyes always moving. He wasn't just leading Sarah, he was watching everything around them. His ears twitched at every sound, and his nose sniffed the air carefully. If someone looked closely, they might notice something different about him. He wasn't just an ordinary guide dog. He moved with purpose, like he had been trained for something much bigger. Sarah and Max crossed the street. Cars slowed down to let them pass. A man in a suit rushed by and mumbled, "Poor thing, must be tough for her." Sarah heard him but didn't react. She had heard words like that many times before. People thought she was weak because she couldn't see. But they didn't know the truth. No one knew that Sarah once worked for a secret agency. A place where people did dangerous jobs, fighting crime and catching bad guys. She wasn't always blind. There was a time when she could see perfectly, and back then, she was one of the best agents in the agency. But after an accident, her world went dark. Most people thought she lost everything. They were wrong. Sarah still had her skills, and most importantly, she had Max. Max wasn't just any guide dog. He had a past more exciting than most people could imagine. Before he became Sarah's guide, he was a spy dog. Trained to sniff out danger, catch bad guys, and protect people. He had been part of many secret missions, wearing tiny cameras and listening devices hidden in his collar. But after years of work, Max was retired. The agency thought he deserved a quiet life. They paired him with Sarah, thinking he would just help her get around. But Max was never meant for a quiet life. And neither was Sarah. As they walked down the busy street, Max's eyes darted around. He noticed things others did not. The man leaning against the wall too long. The woman watching Sarah a little too closely. The strange car parked on the side of the road with its engine running. Max gave a low, quiet growl, just loud enough for Sarah to hear. She tightened her grip on the leash and smiled softly. "Not today, Max," she whispered, tapping his head gently. People thought Sarah was just an ordinary woman, but they were wrong. She could sense danger just like Max could. Even though she couldn't see, she had learned to use her other senses. The way someone walked, the sound of their breathing, even the smell of their perfume, Sarah could pick up on things others missed. She wasn't helpless, not even close. Max led Sarah to the coffee shop she visited every morning. The door jingled as they walked in. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air. The barista, a friendly young man named Jake, greeted her. "Morning, Sarah." The usual. he asked. Yes, please, Sarah said with a smile. Jake glanced down at Max. And a treat for Max, too? He asked. Sarah nodded. Max wagged his tail happily but kept his eyes on the door. Even in a cozy place like this, he never let his guard down. Sarah could feel his body tense when someone walked by too quickly or when a strange noise came from outside. As she waited for her coffee, Sarah thought about her life now. It was different from before, but she was happy. Most people thought blindness had taken everything from her, but they didn't know that she had found new strength. With Max by her side, she felt safe. More than that, she felt powerful. A group of teenagers sat in the corner, laughing and whispering. Sarah could hear them talking about her. "She's so brave," one of them said. "I don't know how she does it," another added. Sarah smiled to herself. If only they knew the truth. If only they knew what she and Max had been through. The chases, the secrets, the danger. Now, their lives were quieter, but they were always ready just in case. Sarah took her coffee and walked out of the shop, Max leading the way again. The city was loud and busy, but she moved through it easily. People still stared, but she didn't mind. She had learned long ago not to worry about what others thought. As they walked past a group of bikers standing by their motorcycles, Max suddenly stiffened. Sarah felt it right away. His body grew tense, and his tail lowered. Something wasn't right. She kept walking but listened carefully. The bikers were laughing, but their voices had an edge, like they were up to no good. Sarah whispered, "Stay cool, Max," and kept walking, but inside, she was ready. Max was too. No one would have guessed that a simple blind woman and her guide dog were far more dangerous than they looked. And soon, those bikers would find out. Sarah loved her morning walks with Max. The park near her apartment was her favorite place to go. It was peaceful, with tall trees and soft green grass. Birds chirped in the trees, and the sound of children playing in the distance always made her smile. Even though she couldn't see the beauty around her, she could feel it: the warmth of the sun, the gentle breeze, and the steady pull of Max leading her down the familiar path. Max was more than just her guide dog. He was her best friend, her protector. He walked beside her, steady and alert, making sure she was safe. People who passed by often smiled at them, and Sarah could hear their soft whispers. "Look at that dog," they would say. "He's so smart." Sarah would smile, knowing they were right. Max was special. But not everyone in the park was kind. One morning, as Sarah and Max strolled along the paved path, she heard a deep rumble in the distance. It grew louder and louder until it sounded like thunder rolling through the park. Sarah stopped for a moment, holding Max's leash a little tighter. She knew what it was: motorcycles. A group of bikers roared into the park, their engines loud and their laughter even louder. Sarah could hear them shouting and joking with each other. She sighed. She had heard them before, and she didn't like their noise. But today, something felt different. Max's body tensed beside her. His ears twitched, and he let out a low, quiet growl. Sarah could tell he was on high alert. She whispered, "It's okay, Max. Let's keep walking." But before they could move, the bikers noticed her. "Hey, look at that," one of them yelled. His voice was rough and teasing. A blind lady walking with her little dog. Sarah ignored him and took a step forward. She was used to comments like that. Some people thought being blind meant she was weak. They didn't know how strong she really was. But the bikers weren't done. Another voice called out, laughing. "Hey, lady. Bet you don't even know where you're going." Sarah felt her face get warm, but she stayed calm. She had learned long ago not to let people like them bother her. She kept walking, but the bikers revved their engines, making the ground shake under her feet. The loud noise made Sarah flinch for a moment, but Max stayed steady. "Look at her, she's scared," another biker sneered. Max tugged on his leash slightly, guiding Sarah away from them. He was smart. He knew they were trouble. But the bikers didn't stop. They circled closer, their laughter growing louder and meaner. Sarah could hear their boots crunching on the gravel as they moved around her. "Maybe she needs some help," one of them said in a fake sweet voice. "Need a ride, lady?" Another one laughed. "Or maybe she just needs to go home and stay there." Sarah's hands gripped Max's leash tightly. Her heart was pounding, but she didn't show it. She knew she couldn't let them see she was scared. She took a deep breath and kept walking, hoping they would get bored and leave her alone. But Max wasn't fooled. He could sense danger better than anyone. His tail was stiff, and his muscles were tense. He was ready. Sarah knew that if things got worse, Max would protect her. "Maybe she's faking it," one biker said. "I bet she can see just fine." Sarah took another step forward, her voice calm but firm. "I don't need any help. Just let me walk." "Oh, listen to her," the first biker said, his voice full of mockery. "She's got a little attitude." One of the bikers moved closer. Sarah could hear his heavy boots, the leather of his jacket creaking as he stepped toward her. Max let out a warning growl, low and deep. The sound was enough to make the man hesitate for a second. "Whoa, calm down, doggy," the biker said, stepping back slightly. "Looks like he's got some fight in him." Sarah reached down and gently touched Max's head. She could feel how tense he was. He was waiting for her command, ready to act if she needed him to. But Sarah knew she had to stay calm. She spoke clearly. "Please, just let me go." The bikers laughed again, but something about Max made them think twice. One of them muttered, "Come on, let's go. She's not worth it." But the biggest one, the leader, wasn't done yet. "Nah," he said. "I wanna see what happens." He took another step closer, and Sarah could feel the air shift around her. Before he could do anything else, Max moved. He pulled Sarah's hand gently, guiding her a few steps back. His body stood between her and the biker. He was trained to protect, and Sarah knew it. The biker paused. "Weird dog," he muttered. Sarah held her ground. "He's not just any dog," she said softly. "You should walk away." The leader stared at Max for a moment, then let out a snort. "Whatever," he said. "Let's go, guys." One by one, the bikers revved their engines and sped away, their tires screeching on the pavement. Sarah listened until the sound faded into the distance. She let out a slow breath and knelt down beside Max. "You did good, Max," she whispered, running her fingers through his fur. "We're okay." Max wagged his tail gently but kept his eyes on the path ahead, making sure the danger was truly gone. Sarah stood up and kept walking, her grip on Max's leash a little firmer now. She knew this wouldn't be the last time someone underestimated her. But with Max by her side, she felt ready for anything. People might see her as just a blind woman, but she was more than that. And those bikers. They had no idea who or what they had just messed with. Sarah stood still, her face calm. She held Max's leash tightly, but her voice was soft when she whispered, "Easy, Max." "Not yet." Max's ears twitched, and his tail wagged slightly. It was strange. Most dogs would bark or try to run away when surrounded by a group of loud, scary bikers. But Max wasn't like other dogs. He was different, very different. These bikers thought they were tough. They laughed and made fun of Sarah, thinking she was just a helpless blind woman. They had no idea they were making a big mistake. Max was not just a guide dog. He had been trained for something far greater. A long time ago, before he became Sarah's guide, Max was part of a top-secret spy team. He had been on dangerous missions, helped catch bad guys, and even saved lives. Sarah knew Max was ready for anything. But she had learned one important thing from all their training: patience. She couldn't act too soon. The bikers kept laughing. One of them, a tall man with a thick beard, stepped closer. "Hey, blind girl," he sneered. "Lose your way. Maybe we can help." Sarah felt Max press gently against her leg, sensing her tension. She reached down, her fingers brushing his collar. Without anyone noticing, she pressed a tiny button hidden beneath his thick fur. A small red light blinked for just a second, too quick for anyone to see. The bikers didn't hear the soft humming sound that followed. They didn't know that with just one press, Sarah had sent a silent message. Somewhere, miles away, a secret signal had been activated. Help was on the way. Sarah smiled, just a little. It wasn't a scared smile. It wasn't a nervous smile. It was a confident smile. The kind of smile that made people wonder if they had made the wrong choice. The leader of the bikers, a man with a leather jacket and tattoos on his arms, frowned. "What's so funny, huh?" he asked, stepping even closer. "You think we're playing games?" Sarah tilted her head, pretending to think. "Maybe," she said softly. The biker's face turned red. "Listen, lady," he growled. "You're lucky we're being nice." Max didn't move, but Sarah could feel his muscles tense under her touch. She knew he was ready to act in a second if she gave the signal. Another biker, this one younger and wearing a red bandana, snickered. "Look at her, boss. She's got guts, I'll give her that." The leader wasn't amused. He took a step closer, so close Sarah could smell the leather of his jacket and the faint scent of cigarette smoke. He reached out, as if to grab Sarah's arm. Before he could touch her, Max let out a low growl. Not loud, but deep enough to make the biker pause. Max's eyes locked onto the man's hand, and his body stiffened, ready to strike if needed. The biker pulled his hand back, his eyes wide for just a second before he laughed. "Whoa. Scary little dog you got there." Sarah smirked. "You have no idea." The other bikers laughed, but there was a hint of nervousness now. They had expected Sarah to be scared, to cry, or beg for them to leave her alone. Instead, she stood calmly with a dog that looked too smart for his own good. Sarah adjusted her sunglasses and took a small step forward. "I think it's time you move along now," she said firmly. "I don't have time for games." The leader chuckled, shaking his head. "You think you're in charge here, blind girl?" Sarah shrugged. "I think you're wasting your time." Max's tail wagged again, but his eyes stayed sharp. Sarah could tell he was watching everything, the way the leader's foot tapped impatiently, the nervous shifting of the younger biker, the sound of an approaching car in the distance. Then, Sarah heard it. A faint buzz in her earpiece, so soft no one else could hear it. It was a sign that her distress signal had been received. Help was coming. She relaxed slightly. Just a little longer. The leader crossed his arms. "You're pretty brave," he said. "But you can't see a thing. What if we decided to take that fancy dog of yours?" "Huh? What would you do then?" Sarah's smile didn't fade. "Try it," she said, her voice steady. "See what happens." The leader's eyes narrowed. He didn't like how calm she was. He expected fear. Instead, he found something else. Something that made him uneasy. The younger biker muttered under his breath, "Boss, let's just go. She's not worth it." Sarah could tell the leader was thinking. She could almost feel the gears turning in his head. Finally, after what felt like forever, he spat on the ground and turned away. "Come on, boys. Let's go." Sarah stood still as the roar of their motorcycles filled the air once more. She listened as they drove off, their laughter fading into the distance. She waited a moment longer, just to be sure they were gone. Then, she knelt down and stroked Max's head. "Good job, buddy," she whispered. Max wagged his tail happily, licking her hand. Sarah stood up and took a deep breath. She could feel the tension leaving her body. She reached up and touched the tiny earpiece hidden in her ear. "They're gone," she said softly. A voice crackled in her ear. "Copy that, Sarah. We were ready to step in." Sarah smiled. "Didn't need you this time," she said, patting Max again. The voice chuckled. "That dog of yours is something else." Sarah grinned. "I know." She continued walking, Max leading her down the path again. The park was quiet now, just like before. Birds chirped, and the wind rustled the leaves. It was like nothing had happened. But Sarah knew better. She knew that trouble could show up anytime, anywhere. And when it did, she and Max would be ready. Always. People might see her as just a blind woman with a dog. But they didn't know the truth. They didn't know she was much more than that. And Max? He wasn't just her guide dog. He was her partner. Her protector. Her secret weapon. The bikers laughed louder, circling Sarah and Max like wolves. Their motorcycles growled like wild beasts, engines revving and tires skidding on the gravel path. The leader, a tall man with a thick beard and dark glasses, smirked. He reached for Sarah's arm, but before he could touch her, something changed. Max's body stiffened. His tail, once wagging, went still. His ears perked up, and his sharp eyes locked onto the biker's hand. Then, without warning, Max barked once, twice short and sharp, like a command. Sarah knew what was coming. She took a deep breath and whispered, "Now, Max." Before anyone could react, Max lunged forward. His powerful jaws clamped onto the biker's leather jacket with a firm grip. With one strong pull, he yanked the man clean off his motorcycle. The biker crashed onto the ground with a loud thud, his helmet rolling away. "What the?" the biker yelled, scrambling to get up. Max didn't waste a second. He moved quickly, circling back to Sarah's side and standing protectively in front of her. His teeth bared, and his growl rumbled deep in his chest. The other bikers froze. They had never seen a guide dog act like this before. "Hey, what kind of dog is that?" one of them shouted, stepping back nervously. Sarah stood tall, a small smile on her face. "The kind you don't want to mess with," she said calmly. But the leader wasn't ready to give up. He pushed himself off the ground, furious. "You little," he snarled, reaching into his jacket for something. Before he could pull it out, Max leaped forward again. In a blur of movement, Max darted between the bikers, weaving through them with precision. One biker tried to grab him, but Max dodged easily, slipping past like a shadow. Tires screeched as one of the men panicked and tried to start his bike, only to have Max tug at his pant leg, sending him toppling over onto the pavement. Another biker lunged for Sarah, thinking she was an easy target. But Sarah was ready. With surprising speed, she sidestepped and delivered a swift jab to his side with her cane. The man doubled over in pain, gasping. "You should have thought twice before messing with us," Sarah said, her voice steady and calm. The remaining bikers hesitated, their confidence shaken. They had thought this would be easy, just some harmless fun, scaring a blind woman and her dog. But now, they realized they had made a big mistake. "Let's get out of here," one of them shouted. The leader, still struggling to stand, growled, "No way. We can take her." But before he could do anything else, Max let out another bark, this one louder, commanding attention. He stood tall, his eyes locked onto the leader like a soldier ready for battle. Sarah took a step forward, tilting her head slightly. "You think you're tough?" she asked. "Max here has taken down worse than you." The bikers exchanged uneasy glances. They could see the determination in Sarah's stance and the sharp intelligence in Max's eyes. This wasn't just a regular dog, and Sarah wasn't just a helpless blind woman. Then, in the distance, The sound of sirens echoed through the park. The bikers panicked. "Cops!" someone yelled. "Let's go, man." With the roar of engines, the bikers scrambled to get on their motorcycles. One of them struggled with his fallen bike, but he managed to push it upright just in time. They sped off, leaving behind a cloud of dust and the leader groaning on the ground. Sarah knelt beside Max, running her hand through his fur. "Good job, buddy," she whispered. Max wagged his tail, panting happily as if it had all been a game. Moments later, a police car pulled up, tires screeching. An officer stepped out and hurried over. "Are you all right, ma'am?" he asked, looking around at the scattered mess left behind. Sarah